vaccine by now. So it plays, I mean, so many of these things play into the meta-narrative of fund us more, give us more power, give us more control, trust our vaccines. There are so many memes embedded in this that it's, I mean, it's disgusting. And it's disgusting to see some of the alternative outlets that seem to be promoting this and taking that, oh, you know, bungling of the response kind of line, rather than calling this out for what it is, which in the United States certainly is complete fear porn right now that is being pushed for the purpose of furthering these goals. One of which, obviously, the insertion of American and British troops into Africa, like they've been wanting to do for years. Kony 2012 was a dud. Boko Haram was a dud. Hey, look, there's a new Ebola scare. Let's go send the troops in. Yay! So that's one aspect of this. The other aspect, of course, the big pharma crap that they're going to try to peddle on the back of this, exactly as the 2009 swine flu was used to peddle billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of vaccines for the manufacturers. Right now we see, of course, Tecmira and ZMapp and all these experimental treatment companies' stocks going through the roof. And now GSK and all the usuals are coming in with their vaccines. So more money to go around for the big pharma eugenicist scum at the top. And on that note, hey, wouldn't you know it, the new Ebola czar just happens to think that overpopulation is the most pressing problem. So a man who thinks there are too many people in Africa and everywhere else is the person who's going to be in charge of dealing with this Ebola crisis. Oh, doesn't that make you feel safe? A couple of things to note on the vaccine front side of this. Of course, Kony in that press conference also said that don't worry, the Ebola vaccine won't give you Ebola. Which is an interesting statement to make, and one that I had to tweet back at the WHO in order to say, yeah, just like the polio vaccine won't give you a polio, right? With a link back to a video that I did on that in the past. And then the other part of this is an interesting tweet that they said, no one can put a price yet on these vaccines. The cost is to be covered by several donor countries and Gavi. And for those who don't know, Gavi is a vaccine alliance based in Geneva, Switzerland, which, if memory serves, was behind the 1990s. I think it was a polio vaccine that ended up sterilizing a bunch of women. It was an abortifacient that they snuck into that vaccine. And also, more recently, Gavi has been held accountable for multiple vaccine deaths and injuries by the Pakistani government and actually ordered to stop their vaccinations in that country. So I had to tweet back at the WHO with a link to that story, and we'll include those links, obviously, in the show notes for this episode. So a lot of stuff going on, but the number one thing I want people who, at least people who are not in West Africa, to take out of this is you are not going to die of Ebola. Do not give into the Ebola fear porn. To whatever extent there really is an outbreak, and whatever extent the numbers are completely manipulated and misleading, exactly as they were in the swine flu. I'll include another link. There's a lot of links, but there's also a link to a 2009 CBS story that showed that the CDC stopped counting the number of swine flu cases during the swine flu outbreak because they kept getting false positives. Tens of thousands of people were told that they had swine flu, but did not. Ultimately, CBS News swept that under the rug. It was going to be broadcast on the evening news. They decided not to air it. It ended up as a website-only piece, but just another piece of the puzzle that shows these organizations, the CDC, the NIH, the WHO, they lie to you in order to line the pockets of their big pharma buddies and for geopolitical interests in Africa. So do not believe what you're hearing about this Ebola hoax, this lie that's being perpetrated right now.
We even covered just a couple of weeks ago, just as a sidebar mention of GlaxoSmithKline dumping. James, what was it? I don't have it. Was it polio vaccine or?
I don't recall, actually, but yes, and all the other craziness, the $490 million fine in China and the investigations in the UK and everywhere else. GSK is up to their eyeballs in it, and they're the ones who are going to be handling this Ebola vaccine. Yay!
And Factor 8 and Bayer, and it's endless. So that could be an endless list of links, James, but we'll leave it there again for now if we can, and continue the strangeness and suspicious activity with story number 2. CEO of French oil giant Total, Christophe Demargerie, killed in a Moscow plane crash. So July, he said no reason to pay for oil in dollars. Now he dies in a bizarre plane crash. The CEO of France's oil and gas giant, Total, Christophe DeMargerie was among 4 people killed in a business jet crash in Vnukovo Airport in Moscow when the aircraft hit a snowplow on takeoff. Total's chairman and CEO was the only passenger in the Falcon 50 business jet besides 3 crew members who were also French citizens. During the taxiing before takeoff at around 0000 hours Moscow time on Tuesday, the light aircraft hit a snow clearing machine, said the head of the press service, telling the media. A Falcon airplane that was en route from Moscow to Paris collided with a snowplow while the jet was preparing to take off. The plane caught fire after the collision, and all the people on board, including a passenger and 3 crew members, died. The aircraft did not leave the ground after hitting the vehicle, she added, refuting earlier reports that the plane did eventually take off, but then the pilot made a decision to turn back and land. The investigators have already found the aircraft's black boxes, while the airport staff were writing explanatory reports, she added. There's a news site called Life News out of Russia. They reported that the plane was in the air for a short period of time, sending distress signals and reporting an engine fire and fuselage damage before it crashed on the runway, becoming engulfed in flames and killing everyone aboard. A criminal investigation has been opened into the violation of safety regulations after a light aircraft crash in the capital's airport. And this came from the transportation official telling RIA Novosti, RIA, the Russian news service. An investigative group is working at the crash, and now they're focusing on finding a video of the incident. James DeMargerie had recently expressed his support for a wider use of other currencies in transactions outside the U.S. for oil purchases in particular, after the scandal involving France's largest bank, BNP Paribas, which was slapped with a record $9 billion fine and a one-year dollar trading ban. DeMargerie said in July, here's the quote, "Nothing prevents anyone from paying for oil in euros. The price of a barrel of oil is quoted in dollars. A refinery can take that price and, using the euro-dollar exchange rate on any given day, agree to make the payment in euros." James, I hand this back to you for perhaps another installment of suspicious plane crash.
Right. Crashes of convenience. Well, it could be. I mean, it's certainly something that we should be watching as we get more information about this. And if a video does emerge, that would be interesting to see. A couple of points that we can take from this. One is, might not be a good idea if you're in a position of power to badmouth the petrodollar, because this is what tends to happen. Or at any rate, realize what you're getting into when you do that. Actually, I did get an email from our friend, the Geneva Business Insider, David L. Smith, about this, where he noted another takeaway point of this is never go to Moscow on your private corporate jet, which, especially if you have just badmouthed the petrodollar, because that sounds like a perfect storm for this type of incident. But also, he notes by the way, this DeMargerie was also a member of the Tattinger family. Apparently his mother was a Tattinger. Helps in the French promotion stakes. I know the Tattinger family is a rich business connected family in France. I don't know a lot of the details of that. So if there are some French listeners in the audience that can inform us, please leave some comments or send emails. We'll pass that information along about that connection. But anyway, this is extremely interesting and extremely suspicious, and I think we should watch the development of this investigation. But if what is being reported now is accurate, it does actually sound to me like it was not a put-up of some sort, because I don't know if the Illuminati is recruiting suicide snowplow drivers, but it sounds like the snowplow driver died in this incident as well, so I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of ways this can happen, but it sounds like it may have actually been an accident, which is why we have to take a look at the investigation as it continues to develop. Again, we can't just assume. We have to actually go with whatever the facts are. So let's see if we can get some accurate and honest and open reporting about what's going on there, and see if we can find some more sources. Again, if there's anyone out there in the listening audience who has more information, please pass it along, and we'll share it in the open source investigation that I think is deserved in a case like this, because as you allude to, I do have that podcast series, Crashes of Convenience, where there have been an awful lot of plane crashes of convenience for the powers that shouldn't be, taking care of some of their main opposition in very convenient ways over the years. So we have to keep that in mind when we see an incident like this, and find out as much as we can about what actually happened.
And it's also worth noting in the article, it does also go on to mention that they had canceled and delayed other flights earlier in the day due to weather. So again, there are lots of other points to get into, and another great example to tell folks again to go keep searching and again try and report it back to us as well. James, let's finally move to a little bit of good news next week, as we do like to do on